Yo! We already talked about the 5 most underrated countries in the 2026 World Cup, but today we're going to talk about the 5 most overrated countries in the 2026 World Cup. Now, these aren't going to be in any particular order, but these 5 countries, in my opinion, are the countries that have gotten a lot of hype. But in my opinion, I don't think they'll perform as people think they will. As always, if you've been enjoying all the World Cup recently, remember to subscribe to the channel. It's free and it does help me out so much. And if you're excited for all the World Cup content to come, why not subscribe? But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Guys, we're starting hot. We are starting hot with USA. Yes, in my opinion, the United States of America, the main host country, is overrated in this World Cup. No disrespect to the USA. I like the USA. They're basically the partners in crime. You know, Canada and the US, we're like this. But in this World Cup, USA are not as good as people say. We've went through so many World Cup rankings where people are putting USA at 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th. Some people almost have USA in the top 10. They are nowhere near the top 10. Do USA have a good team? Of course they do. And they have a good manager in Pochettino. But there are a few problems. First of all, if you look at their manager, he does not have enough international experience. He doesn't have enough international experience. Now, at the club level, he's proven to be a great manager. But in international competitions, we just haven't seen enough of him to say that USA are going to make it to the quarterfinals, the semifinals. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And if you look at this team, guys, let's be real. A lot of these players do play in the MLS. No disrespect to the MLS, but the MLS is not good at all. And for the players that are playing in Europe's top 5 leagues, yes, you do have a few good players. In the defense, we see a player like Chris Richards, who is currently suffering from a small injury, but is a good defender. In the midfield, you see a player like Weston McKennie. In the defense, also, you see Anthony Robinson. These are very, very good players, but it's not good enough to make it that far. Realistically, you cannot make it to the quarterfinals with McKennie and Anthony Robinson as 2 of your best players. And you look at some of their players in the attack. You look at players like Christian Pulisic. For the last half of the season, he's done absolutely nothing. I will admit, for the first half of the season with AC Milan, he was very good. 8 goals, 4 assists. But for the last 10 or so games, he hasn't done anything. And throughout this whole season, he's been suffering through injuries. And even some of the other players, you look at a player like Malik Tillman. I think he's dropped off a little bit in the last season. Some of the other good players like Johnny Cardozo is currently suffering from an injury. So I don't think that this USA squad is as good as people say. Yes, they're a good team and they do have a lot of good quality that is now playing in Europe's top 5 leagues. And I do think that the US every single year are getting better and better and better. But realistically, these players, first of all, don't have a lot of chemistry with each other. Like I already mentioned, the manager doesn't have that much international experience. And the final point is some of their best players aren't performing well. And even the players that are doing very well, like I mentioned, Weston McKennie, players like Ricardo Pepi, players like Balogun. There's a lot of good players, but at the same time, I don't think these players are enough to carry the US to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the second overrated country, I've gone with Ghana. Guys, I feel like this is not even a question at the moment. For people that are still having Ghana as one of the best African teams, you're absolutely crazy. You're out of your minds. Bro, I've been saying it for so long, Ghana are overrated. They've had incredible teams over the last decade, 2 decades. They've produced some incredible players. And at the moment, they still do have some good attackers. Obviously, most notably, they have a player like Semenyo. But realistically, is a few good attackers enough to carry this whole entire squad? The same squad that didn't even make it to the AFCON? The same squad who recently get battered in all the friendlies that they play? Hell no. Guys, look at this Ghanaian team in recent matches. In the last international break, we saw them lose 2-1 against Germany, and then they got smoked 5-1 against Austria. And in the previous international breaks before that, we saw them lose 1-0 against South Africa, who, by the way, have a horrible defense. So the fact that Ghana couldn't score is crazy. And even before that, we saw them lose 1-0 against South Korea, 2-0 against Japan. Like, that's 5 straight losses in a row for Ghana. A lot of people say that Ghana are one of the better African teams. there's no chance. Now, like I already mentioned, they do have some decent players in the attack. They have a player like Jordan Ayew, who yes is getting up there in age, but is still a decent player. They have the likes of Sulemana for Atalanta. They have a player like Antoine Semenyo from Man City. But even one of the best attackers in Mohamed Kudus has been suffering through injury for almost the whole season. And yes, he is a great player, but you don't know how he's going to react and come back from injury. For me, I just think people are overrating Ghana. I've heard people put them in the top 25 teams in the World Cup. For me, I don't even know if they make the top 40. That's how poor they are. I think their friendlies before the World Cup against Mexico and against Wales will tell us a lot. But honestly, early predictions for both those games, I don't think Ghana will win. I don't see them getting the win against Mexico, and against Wales, maybe they could scrape a draw. But other than that, I struggle to see how they're going to get out of the group stages. Moving on to the next overrated country, we have Uruguay. This is the interesting one for me because I do feel like Uruguay aren't a bad team and they actually do have some pretty good players, but I just feel like they're so inconsistent. And if you guys have seen any of my recent videos, I am not a fan of their manager at all. Marcelo Bielsa has had a good career managing at the club level, but in my opinion, at the international level with Uruguay, I just don't think he's been good enough. He has a win percentage of only 47%, and for a team like Uruguay, I think this is pretty low. He's managed 36 matches and he's only won 17, drawn 12, and lost 7. Now, you may think it's not too bad, but realistically, in the CONMEBOL, I think Uruguay are a much stronger team than this. I think realistically, they should be winning at least 70% of the games they play. And with the squad they have, which like I already mentioned, is pretty decent, I don't think Bielsa is the best manager for this Uruguayan national team. Now, like I already mentioned, they do have some big names in their squad. They have Araujo, who plays for Barcelona. They have Mateus Oliveira, who's a decent fullback with Napoli. Obviously, they have Maxi Araujo with Sporting, who I think is actually a pretty decent and pretty underrated player who can play all across the left side. And obviously, if we move further on into the midfield, then they have arguably their best player. Wait, where's Valverde? Okay, I don't know. Oh, there's Valverde. But even with those players, look at some of their recent results. To be fair, in the last international friendly, we saw them get a draw against Algeria and a draw against England, which to be honest, isn't actually that bad. But before that, they got smoked 5-1 against the USA. And I know, once again, this is just a friendly, but this game was absolutely horrible. They got demolished by a team who defensively aren't even that good, and they could only score 1 goal. They failed to score for the rest of the game, and they didn't even do that good. Look at their stats on the attack. They were poor. And even in the World Cup qualification, I don't think they got good results. Obviously, they lost to Argentina, which to be fair is expected. Draw against Brazil isn't too bad, but then we saw them draw against Bolivia. We saw them lose against Paraguay. We saw them get draws against Chile, who were very poor in the qualification. So I just don't think that Uruguay's place in 17th on the FIFA ranking is justified. Moving on to the 4th overrated team, I've gone with Qatar. The host nation in the 2022 World Cup and the second country in history that has hosted a World Cup and that got group stage. Absolutely diabolical. Now, to be fair to Qatar, I do think they're on the rise. I think over the last decade, we've seen probably some of the best Qatar teams that we've seen in recent years. And if you look at them in the Asian Cup, they're actually a very strong team. We saw them win the last Asian Cup and they won the Asian Cup before that. We saw them beat some Asian powerhouses like beating Japan in the final to win that Asian Cup. So in domestic competitions against other Asian teams, Qatar are very good. And obviously they have arguably the best player in their team, which is Akram Hafif. Where is he? Akram Hafif. Akram Hafif. Akram Hafif. 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 Ah! There we go. This guy is a very good player. He can play in the striker position. Most of the time does play on the left side. But look at this guy. I know he's playing in the Qatari league, but bro, his stats are incredible. He scores and gets an assist in almost every single game he plays. And when he's playing with Qatar, he does very similar things. And we saw that in the last World Cup. Yes, they did get group stage, but Hafif was probably their best player. But if he gets injured, Qatar finished. If anything happens to Akram Afif, Qatar have zero chance of making it out of the group. Now, they're in the same group as Canada, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also Switzerland. And in my opinion, I don't see them winning any of those games, and I think they'll struggle to get a draw. I think they'll be incredibly happy if they walk out of this World Cup with 1 point in the group stage. That's how poor I think this Qatar team is compared to many of the other teams. Now, yes, they are ranked in 55th by FIFA, but I don't even think they should be that high. It's hard to really look at the recent matches because obviously they did have friendlies scheduled in the last international break, but both of them got canceled, which is a little bit unlucky for them. And we can look at the recent results in the Arab Cup, but to be honest, a lot of teams aren't playing their best squads in that competition, so it's not really a fair thing to judge them by. But even in that competition, they didn't get a single win. They got smoked by Tunisia, they drew against Syria, and they lost against Palestine, who are currently going through a war. But moving on to the last team, I've gone with Colombia. Guys, don't hate me. Please, please, please don't hate me, okay? I love Colombia. I love Colombians. I have Colombian friends. I love Colombia, and I hope Colombia can make it very, very far in this World Cup. I would love it if Colombia could make it to the round of 16, the quarterfinals, the semifinals. It would be incredible, but I just don't see it happening. I think they're in a very, very difficult group. If you look at their group, they have the likes of Uzbekistan, a very, very underrated Asian nation, DR Congo, who are a very underrated African nation. I think they're one of the best teams in Africa, and Portugal, who are probably one of the favorites to win this whole World Cup. And on top of that, if recent results are anything to go off, they have not been good at all. In the last international break, we saw them play, to be fair, two very, very tough opponents in Croatia and France, but they got smoked in both of the games. They lost 2-1 against Croatia, and then they lost 3-1 against France. But this was not France's best team. This was arguably maybe not even their B team. This was almost a C team for France, and Colombia were dominated for a majority of that game. And even if we look at the game against Croatia, yes, they were decent. They got that very, very early goal by John Arias. But other than that, they just couldn't finish their chances. Luis Suarez, who I've said is a great player this season. He scored so many goals with Sporting. He's been fantastic. But this guy was missing wide open nets. Balls going right into him in the middle of the net, goalie out of the net, and he completely misses the ball. I remember watching this friendly match at the end of 2025 where Canada were coming up against Colombia, and Colombia did absolutely nothing on the attack. They had a little bit more possession, but they had one shot on target, and that's against Canada, a team who I don't think should be anywhere near the top 20, maybe not even in the top 25. And then we see people putting Colombia in 10th, 11th, 12th. Some people even have them in the top 10 best teams in the world. How can a team that's in the top 10 best teams in the world fail to score against Canada? And at the end of the day, I know these are international friendlies and you have to take them with a grain of salt, but you can still judge based off friendlies. You can't fully judge a team based solely off friendlies, but it definitely helps your case. Now, I do think these two international friendlies right before the World Cup, once again, are very, very important. Now, they're not the best teams. Costa Rica and Jordan aren't the best teams. Jordan are playing in the World Cup and they can score a lot of goals. So if Colombia can successfully keep a clean sheet against Jordan, I think that is very good for them, and it will make me more confident in Colombia heading into the World Cup. But if they suffer goals against Jordan, if they don't win both of these two games, I think that's really poor, and I'm definitely going to be worried for them. But that's the end of this video. Those were my 5 overrated nations for the 2026 World Cup. As always, if you agree with my list, remember to leave a comment down below. But if you disagree and you think I maybe missed out on a couple nations, or you disagree with some of my picks, remember to leave your top 5 overrated nations in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.